你们的巴布亚新几内亚队不是我们上海熊队的对手。
Hello and welcome to episode 525 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRLP, and join me as always is the glorious LeagueFreak. You can also find on Twitter at LeagueFreak. How you going there, mate?
Going pretty well, Andrew. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Been a little bit offline on the socials.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There's a world out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you need to venture into it too much.
Mm-hmm.
It does exist. Thankfully, everyone out there is on their phones though, so they don't see you. So it's pretty cool.
Only the miserable ones are on their phones. It's funny when you look at Twitter and it's like, man, the world's going to hell, and then you get off your phone and you go outside and it's like, I know everyone's happy.
Well, they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fine. It's all good. So yeah, that's it. That's been interesting. But other than that, just working and researching.
Excellent.
How about you? What have you been up to other than virusing and playing with dolls?
They're high-end collectibles, Andrew.
Sorry,
and that's not the only things I've been doing. I also have gone to Red Rooster quite a few times.
Yeah. Hear that, Porto?
Oh,
that's what happens when you don't give us a sponsorship.
Exactly.
We'll just find someone else to badger.
Yeah, even though they are the same parent company that owns both. But anyway. Interesting week in rugby league. Lots happening. A lot of money spent.
Yeah, it's been a rather lucrative week for rugby league.
It has. So, but we're going to start off with an email because we got an email here. It is from MJ. I think I can say his name's James. I don't think he'll be too upset about that. So he asked a question. He said the subject was team scoring 40 points. Hey, boys. Round 12 had a lot of points scored, with 5 of 8 winners scoring between 42 and 44 points. And he notes that only one of these victories was an arrogant win. Is this a record of teams scoring in the 40s in a single round? Cheers, MJ.
Oh, so I've got to do this, have I?
Yeah, this ain't my department. I'm putting my feet up.
Okay, I'm going to go through the stats. Okay, you know what? Let's drop the facade. I've already done the research.
Okay.
It has happened once before, better than 5. Yep. Okay, and it was six games out of 8, and it was round 23 in 2022. We'll go through. Cowboys beat the Warriors 48-4.
Yep.
Storm beat the Broncos 60-12.
Yep.
Eels beat the Dogs 42-6.
Mm-hmm.
Sharks beat Manly 40-6. The Roosters snuck home against the Tigers 72-6.
Ooh, close one.
And the Dragons beat the Titans 46-26.
There we go. That's a very tight scoreline.
I should check out to see what the other scores were in that round, because they're probably both pretty nuts as well.
Yeah.
Where were we? Here we are. So South lost to Penrith 26-22.
Okay.
Doesn't count though because it was arrogant.
Yep.
And Canberra beat the Knights 28-22. So in both those games, over 40 points were scored in them as well.
Okay, that's interesting. A lot of points.
Big scoring round.
Yeah.
How many points were scored that round? 466 points were scored in the round.
Wow. That's good. That'd have to be a record, right?
Yeah, I mean, imagine letting in that many points in a few days. It's kind of like being South.
That's cruel.
It's cruel. It is now too. Now they're back in the winner's circle.
Speaking of big wins, like that win last week by the Panthers was pretty scary to watch, I would suggest, for every other team in the NRL, because we've seen some really good performances from teams like the Storm against the Panthers. I think that was round 1 from memory. That was a very good win that stood out for me. And we've seen a couple of good performances by the Broncos too, but I don't think there's any other team in the league that could do what the Panthers did for 80 full minutes, where they just strangled the Sharks. And they did it without Cleary in the team, which was, just showed how much depth they've got. It was crazy. They gave the Sharks nothing at all. And it's not even like you could look at the Sharks and say, wow, the Sharks were terrible. Like, they just weren't allowed to be anything.
That's right. It was one of those very few in recent times performances by Penrith where they gave you the same intensity in the first minute as it was in the 80th. It's not a criticism of them. They usually play at about 70% the whole time and do whatever they need to get the win. And usually they're not winning tight games. They're winning comfortably every time, but they're just we've said it before. They don't go after the jugular sometimes. They just go, yep, that's the win done.
Yeah.
Just keep the defense looking good and we'll be fine. Just cruise home from here. This is the first time they've just gone, now you know what? Let's just see what happens if we just sort of stay on it. First thing I noticed was from out of the blocks, forwards were running straight, committed hard lines. Even the decoy runners, everyone was just really committed to the lines they were running. The defense was coming up hard and early, just shutting down any chance that the opposition could move the ball out anywhere. It just gave Cronulla absolutely nothing in attack, and then threw the challenge down to the Sharks' defense as well in the second. Especially in the second half there. So like the Sharks have been close to one of the best teams performance-wise in the second half this year. And Penrith just went, yeah, you know what? Let's have a crack at that title. It was insane to watch. And you know what? Some could say, there was, losing Hines had an impact. And you know what? It did. But at the same time, that wasn't going to change much. Just the way Penrith were playing. They were just in that mood where they just wanted to put the team away. And because of how good they are, it doesn't matter who that team is. They'll just do that.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that stood out for me was like, Cronulla had actually won some pretty impressive games over the last few weeks, and especially against the Storm, they were fantastic. I think it was the Storm.
Yeah.
Fantastic against, and then they beat the Roosters from memory. Who I don't rate the Roosters, but the Roosters were full of themselves, and they beat the Roosters. And then Penrith comes out and like, I tipped I remember when we talked about the tipping for it, and I said, look, I'm going to tip the Panthers just on, their reliance on everything they've won in the past. And we talked about like, would it be a worse loss for the Panthers or the Sharks? I think it's obviously like you lose like that in any game, it's going to be terrible. But for when it happens, when you're on top of the league and you really feel like you're one of the big guns all of a sudden, and then like the Panthers come out and they just put their foot on your throat for 80 minutes, like that is a real big wake up call, not only to the Sharks, but I think every other team in the comp is just, they've got to be like if Penrith plays like that, no one's beating them.
I was just going to say, like, no one would have beaten Penrith or kept their score down. They were just going to do that to anyone.
Yeah.
There's just nothing you can do about that.
And the crazy thing is, like, if this was Penrith just starting to find themselves and they put on a performance like that, you'd be like, wow, they're going to be hard to beat this year. And this is them after winning 3 straight titles. It makes no sense. Like, we haven't seen this in our lifetime.
No, that's right. It's been, I don't know, so many people have got this automatic hatred. It doesn't matter what the team is. Just when a team gets successful, automatic hatred. We saw it with the Storm. We saw it with the Roosters.
Yep.
We're seeing it now with Penrith. And in the past, it was with the Broncos. And every now and then, you just kind of hope the knockers just sit back and just appreciate what they're witnessing. You don't need to go public and say, you know what, they're fucking great, this Panthers. You just sit back and go, you know what, this is pretty special what we're seeing here, even if it isn't my team. Like, this hasn't been done for 30 years.
Yeah.
And they look committed to pushing even further and chasing a goal of something that hasn't been done since the Dragons.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about 11 straight. I'm talking about 4 straight.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing to watch. There's nothing more to say about it.
Yeah, and like all but a couple of their players really should have the best years of their career still ahead of them, which gets me. And like I always find it because it'll be funny when I'm on Twitter and I'll be talking about whatever, and somebody will try and have a go at like the Panthers, which is just dumb. Like anything else, like bring up anything else, but trying to have a go at the Panthers is really dumb. Like, and I've seen people saying, "Oh, Nathan Cleary, it's pretty clear he's just a systems player," which I tweeted about this week. When people say, "Oh, systems," like it just means they don't know how to talk about a game plan and what they're actually saying. Because they'll say it about the Storm too. Oh, the Storm, their systems are amazing. But what do you mean by that? You know?
Yeah.
And yeah, Nathan Cleary's a systems player clearly. And it's just funny to see how silly the criticisms get at some point where it's like, oh yeah, but like, you know, have they, I saw one dude this week, he was talking about how, Nathan Cleary hasn't won anything unless he was playing for the Panthers. And he's like, oh, you know, he even lost last year when Australia lost the final to New Zealand. Well, he didn't play in that game. You know, and then when you point out that he won a World Cup final for Australia and they just tried to backpedal and come up with some other bullshit. Yeah. And it's really weird. Like, and look, I don't care at the end of the day. I just enjoy my footy, whatever. But it's just weird to see there are people that will try and find something or some reason. Like some people will say, like, I'll talk about their junior base, their local junior base, and they'll say, oh, yeah, but you've got like 3 players that come from the New South Wales country. It's like, yeah, 3 of them in the whole squad. Like, a Roosters fan actually said that to me, which was hilarious. We've got more local juniors in the Roosters squad than the Roosters have local Roosters juniors. Seeing some of the silliness is kind of interesting, but it doesn't matter when you come out and you put on a game like that against like the team leading the competition and you're in awe of them. And when they're your own club, it's like, this is crazy.
Absolutely. No, it was definitely impressive. There's no other way to word that. Yeah, it's kind of all gone downhill for the old Sharks since then too.
Yeah, Nico Hines picking up that injury, and they said it wasn't too bad, and then he gets called into the New South Wales team. But then, yeah, tonight they get pretty much belted by the Parramatta Eels. And, you know, both the teams played kind of weird footy. Like you could see both the fragility in both of the teams. Even though the Eels won by a lot, you could see the issues they had, especially in defence. But yeah, the Sharks, like that, when it's put to the Sharks, they don't step up. They're a very solid, consistent team, but they don't have those extra gears that even worse teams than them have. Like even the like Canberra Raiders, when they're on fire, they've got an extra gear, you know? I don't think the Sharks have that sort of extra gear that even the Raiders have.
It's an interesting one, and it's hard to know. Look, they've had a bit of churn, I guess, with their squad a bit of late, but you know that's not an excuse because everyone's going through that at the moment with Origin selection and injuries starting to pick up this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to struggle with it more than other clubs have.
Yeah.
Maybe it's more noticeable because they'd won 7 straight games. And at the top of the ladder, you can't really be sneaking into first place for 6 straight weeks. So it's probably a bit more noticeable for that reason. So it'd be interesting to see how they cope through the Origin period. Because they've got themselves in a good spot. To be honest, they probably only need 6 more wins out of the remaining 13 or 14 games.
I think we're exactly halfway through the season now, from memory, yeah.
So 6 more wins will get them into the top 6 or so.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good minimum goal to have, is just 5 or 6 wins. But there's no reason why they can't get themselves back on track and remain a top 4 side. I don't think there's too many competitors outside of Penrith and Melbourne that we've seen yet, and Brisbane, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else other than Melbourne, Penrith, Brisbane?
Not for me.
No, I can't see anyone. That's why I think the Sharks should be a top 4 side this year. They've got off to a good enough start. They do have a good enough squad to bounce back from this and get back on track.
Yeah.
The big test is making sure that they don't take too long to get back on track. And that's the difference between a good team and a mid team, I guess.
Yeah. And I think they'll do it. I guess the Dolphins could sneak in, but it would mean that the Sharks have gone on a bit of a losing streak. But yeah, I mean, for me, every time, the Storm of the Storm, we all know what they're capable of. And every time I watch Brisbane, I just think they have so many good young forwards in that team, and there's so much to like about what they do. And if they just pull it together at the right time, you could see them being unbeatable, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And I think we saw that in the grand final. They pull it all together. They can smash even the Panthers for a certain amount of time. But, I think it's a 3-horse race at the moment, and then there's quite a big drop to, say, I think it'll be like you drop down to the Sharks, and I think the Dolphins are a little bit similar to the Sharks in that they're just very consistent, and then you drop down a little bit more, and then you've got, teams like the Roosters and that.
I think the Roosters are looking a lot better than I probably thought they would be. Their attack has been fucking ridiculous the last 5 weeks. They've scored 210 points or so like that in the last 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter who you're playing against. That's an impressive amount of points that they're racking up there.
Yeah.
So they're building up quite a good points differential on the ladder down there in the bottom end of the top 8, which means 2 or 3 even narrow wins, and they start jumping up several places at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So, well done to them, I guess.
Yeah. See, the thing about them, I think, is that their pack is big reputation but soft, and then their halves are brittle, and then their best player is Joey Manu by quite a long way. They've got brain explosions in that team. Tedesco is still a solid player, but he isn't what he was. He's not going to drag them kicking and screaming to wins anymore. So I think that bottom end of the top 8 is probably looking like where they belong in terms of strength of the competition. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's why we play the games.
Now, speaking of seeing what will happen, the Origin sides were named start of the week.
Yeah, who should we look at first? Do you want to look at Queensland first?
Yeah, sure, we can do that.
Okay, fuck them.
Do you want me to go through
Andrew. They can get fucked.
I was going to say, did you want to go through the places of birth for any of them, see how many of them are actually born in Queensland?
That's pretty funny, actually.
So for Queensland, I don't know. I look at I just scrolled through it. In recent times, most of the team selections have been kind of hard to argue with, mostly because it's pretty obvious who they're going to pick, and there's not a huge amount of alternatives half the time.
Yeah.
So they've got in fullback Reece Walsh, Xavier Coates, Marito Alangi on the wing, Valentine Holmes, Hamarsai, Tabuai Fadau at centres, Tom Dearden at 5'8", Daly Cherry Evans at halfback. Props, Ruben Cotter and Lindsay Collins at hookers, Ben Hunt. Back rows, Jaden Sewer, Jeremiah Nanai and Patrick Carrigan's the lock. On the bench, Harry Grant, Fodawaker, Hopgood and Selwyn Cobbo. And oddly enough, Ezra Mam is 20th man.
I was shocked that he was and as a New South Wales supporter, I'm so glad that he's 20th because I don't like the thought of him being out there in that starting side at 5'8". He's in incredible form. He's a great player. We've seen he's a big game player. And Dearden, I think that his form is so at the moment, and I just think he's easier to handle than Mam. Like, Mam can rip a game open. Dearden can't do that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the one thing that's interesting about this is the Maroons have got 2 forwards on the bench, whereas New South Wales has got 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if Cobbo is going to get dropped off there. I don't know if they bring Mam in or not. I'd like to see Mam replacing Dearden at 6,
mm-hmm.
and probably put they've got Brendan Piakura as the 19th man. I'd probably put him on the bench in place of Cobbo.
Yeah.
Just to add a bit of meat to their pack. The one name that surprised me was I haven't checked to see if they're injured or not. So apologies if I got this bit wrong. But Josh Papali not being named.
Yeah, I don't think he's injured from memory. I think he may be retired from rep footy, hey?
Oh, is that what happened? Okay.
I have a feeling he might have retired from rep footy when he did his last deal.
Fine, that would explain it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, for me, he's the first person I put down on paper. I don't care what form he's in.
Yeah.
He's a Dale Shearer of props.
He is.
Put a maroon jumper on him and he just starts killing people.
It's like Paul Sirenan was the Dale Shearer of second rowers.
Yes, that's another good one. We could do our team of the Dale Shearers of Origin. So for New South Wales,
but we don't pick Dale Shearer.
No, that's right. Dylan Edwards at fullback. On the wing, Brian Tuo and Zach Lomax at centre. Stephen Crichton, Joseph Suali. The halves, Jerome Luai, Nico Hines. Props, Jake Trebojevic and Payne Haas. At hooker is Reece Robson. Back row, Liam Martin, Angus Crichton. Cameron McInnes is at lock. And on the bench is Isaac Yeo, Hamoli, Olo Kawatu, Spencer Lenu, and Hudson Young. And I went, how does... I've got a few questions, and I've got a feeling they're probably going to be the same as yours.
Okay.
So while I'm talking, I'll say them. How does Yo lose his spot to McInnes?
I don't know, because he is...
I'm glad we're on agreement on that one, because that one's got me.
It's so crazy, I can't imagine that it's going to stay that way when they start the game, because Yo is the best lock in the game by quite a way now, and he's a great playmaker as well, and he's great defensively, and he's got incredible mobility, and he can play the full 80 minutes. And I just don't know how I mean, he's also a big dude. People don't realize how big the guy is. So I don't understand it whatsoever. And I can only imagine, because he's been named co-captain today, I believe it was. I can only imagine that he is actually going to start.
Logic would dictate, okay, if we stick with this 17, logic dictates that McInnes is on the bench, not so much because of how good Yo is, but because McInnes can play, as a defensive forward and also as a backup hooker.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, that's your utility forward. Put him on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's there. Yeah. So I don't get that selection there.
Also, McInnes. How many times has he tackled someone and actually hurt them?
I think it's about 2 less than Luke Brooks has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hudson Young gets a recall.
I don't get that whatsoever. I don't even think he's in good form for a Raiders forward.
Oh, I'll say in his defense on his Origin series last year is that he was picked to do exactly the same job as, I forgot who it was now, the other second row that they had at the time. But they did not use him in the same way. And so he was basically just John Bateman in an Origin jumper. He was just standing around looking for something to do but not knowing what his job was.
Yeah, he was terrible.
That was down to horrible coaching.
Yep.
And not much as far as guidance from the hooker that was on the field at the time.
Yeah.
Just saying, mate, just fucking run straight.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've not seen anything to suggest that he's been Origin worthy so far this year.
Yeah. I've talked about on Twitter, do the Raiders need to drop him back to the bench because he's just stuffing up so much for the Raiders. So I was shocked to see his name there. Suwali is another one that I just don't get it. I've watched him this year. I don't think he's been in good form for the last year, calendar year. I watched the Roosters. It's not like he's one of their standout players. And so I don't understand why he's in the side when we've got better players out there that we could have selected.
Look, I'll say this. Despite who we've named, it's refreshing to see that we've selected wingers on the wing and centres at centre.
Yeah, that's true. That is definitely true.
So that bit makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'd probably, and I'm now going to go back on that, kind of, and say I'd rather Burton at centre over Suwali.
Yeah.
And I know Burton does play 5/8 majority now, but he does and has played an awful lot of centre in his time as well. So it's not like it's that bad a call.
Am I wrong for having zero faith in Nico Hines?
I'll say this in his defence.
Mm-hmm.
He has not been used remotely closely correctly in the brief time that he's had in Origin.
Oh, 100%. Definitely agree with that.
And I've said all along is that if he has to play Origin and he's got to be there, then he needs to be the starting halfback. And the only way that can happen is if Nathan Cleary is not available. And so that's why he's there. I'm willing to give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
The concern I've got is he's got a great 6 and 1 there.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as we talk about spine, and we always include the hooker in that, to be honest, with the halves, it's the backs that they're working with the majority of the time when it comes to the playmaking stuff. So he's 1 and 6. They're very good because Dylan Edwards, play style wise, obviously he's better than William Kennedy, but it's a very similar style. So Hines can work with that really well. So, really, really good support play.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you want. So he's not trying to be, and that's the other thing that Dylan Edwards does. He's not trying to be another 5'8". He's a legit fullback.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't need to be given the ball all the time, which is kind of what was happening with Tedesco. And Tedesco is also very similar to Edwards in that sense, where he's very much a ball-running fullback. And you just give him the ball, those sweep-around plays out the back. That's how you give the ball to Tedesco, and you use him that way. And Edwards is very similar, but he also has a very good straight running game. And William Kennedy is very similar in that way. So I think Hines will work really well with Dylan Edwards on that sense.
Mm-hmm.
The combination with Luai, I don't think that'll be too bad either.
Mm-hmm.
Because Luai is kind of a little bit more similar to Daniel Atkinson, who Hines is currently playing with, although he doesn't have much experience with him. It's only just been the last few weeks.
Yeah.
But both very good straight line runners, good creative players, especially really good footwork, and can hold their own defensively. So there's a bit of familiarity there in the 1 and 6 for Hines, which will work for him. I'm not sold on Reece Robson as hooker.
Yeah, I didn't understand that one either. I don't know how you don't pick Appy Coruscant.
Yeah.
When, like you and me, when he signed for the West Tigers, we were like, he's basically picking up his retirement check, right? And he has been absolutely outstanding every single game he's played for them. He's been their best player by a country mile. And for a guy to be such an outstanding performing hooker in that West Tigers team, which has been beaten most weekends and he's playing behind a beaten forward pack most weeks, it's outrageous that he's able to do it. So I just didn't even think that he was like possibly going to be left out. I can't believe it. And Robson's like, he's okay. He's the guy you select when everyone else is injured though.
Yeah. It's For me, based on form this year, there were only two options available for hooker for New South Wales. It was Coruscant, and behind him was Blake Brayley. They're the only two that have been holding their own and being decent performers and consistent week in, week out. I didn't have Robson close to either of them. And Coruscant, comfortably the best hooker option available. So I don't get it at all.
No.
And the good thing you get with Coruscant is if Hines does struggle, Coruscant can play that hooker role, that halfback role.
Yeah.
He can just immediately fill in and take over, and things will be fine. And that's what you need him there for. Whereas Robson, I don't get it. I'm not getting that one at all.
See, I would have had Mitch Kenny as a Panthers hooker. Sorry, I would have had the way I would have done it. I would have had Mitch Kenny start, and I would have had Coruscant coming off the bench after about 15, 20 minutes, like Penrith used to do.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, and it's just because like defensively, Kenny's very, very good. He's a big body as well, and he's just going to get the job done. And then you've also got that cohesion factor. So yeah, I was surprised by the hooker choice as well. It was funny watching last week. People being like, Jerome Luai, he's a really good player. Hey, it's like, yeah, he's been a good player this whole time. Like, you can stop hating on him the whole time and watch him play footy. So that was funny to see. I would have actually gone with him at halfback, considering Nathan Cleary was injured. Him at halfback and Matt Burton at 5'8". And once again, more Panthers in the side. Like, I just think that anytime you can slot a Panthers player in there, I would do it for the simple fact of these guys kind of have worked out how to win together, and I would have relied on that as much as possible.
Now, I do have a question.
Yeah.
I know there's a bit of setup here. Remember, we've had a few times in the past where players who aren't eligible to play Origin because they're from another country.
Yes.
Have wanted to see if it was possible to change the rules to allow them to play Origin. Like, I think Sam Burgess, Sonny Bill Williams. There might have even been talk of trying to get Benji Marshall at one stage.
Yeah.
Trying to get them in there?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that one of the greatest sons of Ireland's International Rugby League team is the 19th man for New South Wales?
Well, considering he's
look, let me just add to this. I'm just going to sit back.
Okay.
The floor is yours.
First of all, shout out to Owen, who's definitely listening. He pointed out where Irish Rugby League is at, and Luke Keary is not Irish. All right, he just fucking isn't Irish, and if like an Irish person would say that, you know, he's just not Irish. So the fact that he's in the side, it's weird that they put him in the side, but they weren't going to pick Radley because Radley played for England. Now, I wouldn't pick Radley anyway. I think Radley's overrated and he's like a sin binning waiting to happen. But yeah, it just shows what a fucking joke International Rugby League is. You know, what part of Ireland was he fucking from? He said he was a Queenslander for half his life. He wasn't even a Queenslander.
Oh, he was born in Ipswich.
Nah, fuck him. He moved here when he was... Look, Ezra Mam was born in Sydney.
So they put Keary there just to balance that out. Take the moz off it a little bit.
The whole fucking thing's ridiculous. It should just be you play for the place you were born in.
I think this is fair. Why don't we swap him and Ezra Mam can play at 6 next to Luai?
I think that's fair.
And Keary can be... Should Keary be 5'8"? Keary could be 5'8" to DC. I think that seems fair.
Yeah, why not? But it's literally called State of Origin. And then they're like, oh, so that's where you come from. Well, no, not really. It's where you played your first junior football at. It's like, shut up. Just fucking do it where you were born and stop with the games.
Well, he's played more tests for Ireland than he has tests for Australia or State of Origin games. So that does kind of tend to make him Irish.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, he's not Irish. James Tedesco's not fucking Italian.
And his last genuine rep game was for Ireland, and that was in 2022. I mean, he's basically Irish. He's as Irish as potatoes.
He's as Irish as Guinness. I can buy one of them down at the local bottle-o.
There we go. Speaking of potatoes.
Yes.
David Nofaluma was seen with one recently. You were telling me about.
Yeah, he was. He posted a picture of himself in Manchester.
Manchester.
Yeah, in Manchester, and he was having a beer. It looked like with Justin Potato, and saying what a good bloke Potato was, and what a great CEO he was, and that's why the both of them are unemployed right now.
That's right. Oh, there's only one person who would think that Justin Potato was a great CEO, and that was the one who gave David Nofaluma a 4-year, $400,000 a year contract.
David Nofaluma is no longer part of the Salford Red Devils lineup because they watched him play football for like 3 weeks and said, "Oh, nah, he's too bad even for us," which I think says everything.
Yeah, he's definitely not good enough.
No.
And that's a pretty big call to make, given that he was also a winger.
I feel like if I trained for 3 months, I could at least slot into a Challenge Cup tie with Salford on the wing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be hard, surely.
Playing against Batley or someone.
So we'll move on from these dopes.
Someone with a number, some English winger with a number on his back that's higher than the number of teeth in his face. Probably bald, because that's the only hairstyle they've got over there. Bald.
Yes. Now, while we're on the Tigers, there's been quite an insane beat-up by the media this last week, because the Tigers have the bye this week. And Benji Marshall's decided to go on a holiday to Fiji for the week.
Yep.
And I've just seen, not only has the media gone after Benji Marshall, and Shane Richardson has said, well, who's running the club? Mind you, that was Phil Rothfield's words. Because if anyone knows what a CEO needs to do to run a club, it's the bloke who's run... No. It's the bloke who's been a... No, not that one either. Yeah, I don't know what Phil Rothfield is. I know, bullshit.
Yeah.
He's a bullshitter. I just saw too, just now, that news.com.au have now dragged Benji's wife into it and saying that they're under fire over, in quotation marks, terrible look. And the terrible look is the fact that they went on holiday. What are they going to drag her into it for?
Yeah, that's gross. That's absolutely gross.
It's filthy. Now, also, Andrew Webster, the Warriors coach, has come out and he said that he thinks the West Tigers bashing has become tiresome, and I fully agree.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing now is basically, I think there's another one here. Would Wayne Bennett do this? Benji grilled over Fiji holiday. Yeah, I remember during COVID, Wayne Bennett went out to a restaurant when everyone was supposed to be in a bubble. You remember that?
Yeah, and he had a coffee.
Yeah.
And it meant that he had to miss a game coaching the club.
That's true, but if we're going to talk about discipline and always being with your club and doing everything by the book, why would you criticise Wayne when just a few years ago he actually went and did whatever the hell he wanted anyway in the middle of the season? It cost him to miss a game. Benji's not going to miss a game.
No. I actually saw somebody say that there was with the West Tigers and the way that they're having this break leading into the Origin period and all that, there was a break that was mandated for the players by the Rugby League Players Association, a 3-day break that was mandated by them, and that they'd organised that. And so, yeah, like, I just don't understand. Like, I've got no problems with it if the West Tigers have no problems with it. We've talked about the work Benji Marshall's done. Benji Marshall's talked about having a good work-life balance. And he just doesn't need to justify himself to a bunch of fucking so-called journalists who all they know what to do is be able to drink beer and sit back and say, well, I think. Like, there's been so many quotes this week that have come out of different fucking outlets from these journalists where they've just made shit up, and they've made shit up on the run, and you can see it. Like, they've quoted themselves thinking they're doing something special. It's like, fuck all of them. I think that the NRL needs to start regulating who they give media passes to. We don't need to give media passes to all these people that just
I don't think they should be issuing out media passes at all.
Well, look,
why do they need to? They could just go, you know what? The only people going to have media accreditation are employees of the NRL, and it's going to be their job to report on what happens on the games.
Well, but you need to give it to broadcasters, right? So the broadcasters need their media passes. Outside of that, you might have a point. I don't like when I see the press conferences after the game, and it's very rare I'll watch them. Sometimes I'll tune into a Ricky Stewart one, I'll sit down, I'll take my pants off, I'll grab some lotion and watch Ricky Stewart.
As we all do.
Yes. Oh, man.
Do you put socks on?
I'm not a weirdo, Andrew. Of course I put socks on.
Oh, good.
With sandals over the top of them, yeah.
Naturally. Sometimes if I can't find my sandals, I just go straight with the thongs.
Yeah. It was, they're very similar.
Yeah.
But, so I'll watch them. Do the media ask, do they really ever ask good questions, really? Like,
well, no. Actually, to be honest, they don't even ask questions. They just throw statements out there and just wait for something to happen. And to the club's fault, they responded to the criticism.
Yes.
You just don't.
No. Don't give them the content.
And if you want to respond, just say what Benji Marshall chooses to do on his accepted and allowed days off is up to him. But you don't need to go into it. The other one was criticising Shane Richardson because he's gone over to England.
Mm.
They're going, well, who's running the club? And going, it doesn't fall apart because the CEO's not there.
Mm.
It's not how things work. I'm wondering what Phil Rothfield thinks a club is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to run, because I'll tell him right now, whatever you think it is, you've got it completely wrong. But every aspect of how you think it works, you clearly have zero clue. Not even close to it. Like sometimes people can just fumble their way and guess something that's half right.
Mm.
But Buzz, you don't even seem capable of fluking a half right guess. You are so bereft of any knowledge of anything to do with the game now. Seriously, mate, just go and talk about horse racing. That's all you watch. Just go do that. Go over to the sport, the horse racing channel. Just go over there and talk on there. You'll fit right in. I'm fucking sick of that doddering old prick. Man, he makes no sense. Gibbering old fucking jerk off.
So many of them. It's kind of crazy.
And I'm not even rolled up because of the thing over the West Tigers. He's been going on with garbage like this for years. Remember when the Sharks going through all the Asada stuff? And it's the only club that would talk to him because he's mates with fucking Flanagan. So he was just giving leads on whatever bullshit Flanagan was reading to them to try and save his own ass.
Mm.
And Buzz was out there fucking sending that crap around everywhere and talking about how, I'm a Sharks fan, and while at the same time he's out there just absolutely destroying the fucking any chance this club had of trying to get through that fucking mess. Going, yeah, some fan you are. And you want to go out there and criticize other fans. You want to go out there and carry on like this and all this other fucking garbage he carries on with. He's the biggest hypocrite out there, and he's full of shit and has no fucking clue.
Yeah, I don't know why people take in the media that some of these people produce. Like, I know, we've talked about people watch NRL 360 and they hate it. It's like, stop watching it then, And I mean, Gordon Tallis, I saw another quote by Gordon Tallis where he was talking about, like, it's unfair that Michael Maguire, who was involved in, like, working with the referees about 5 or 6 years ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfair. He's going to have an unfair advantage coming into State of Origin because of that work, because he knows how the referees work or something like that. I don't really know. If I knew, I would be Gordon Tallis level of fucking intelligence, Maybe if I do the Homer Simpson thing and shove a fucking crayon up my nose for, 27 years, maybe I'd get there. But that's what he come up with. And, I'm thinking, like, why would anyone watch a show where that's the level of information that somebody on there is trying to pass on?
It shows you how clearly they are running the agendas against referees. But they would say that the referees would even be allowed themselves to be, taken advantage of by coaches and stuff like that, knowingly.
Yeah, so silly. It's just silliness, And
Tallis is another one. He's just an utter doffering fucking idiot.
Just silliness, yeah. And, like, I mean, anything that Dean Ritchie writes, just anything, absolutely. Every single thing he writes or says. I don't know why people take it in. Like, because as soon as any of that come on my screen, I just flick the channel. Like,
well, this is the thing. I legit have not watched NRL 360 for, 3 years?
Yeah.
And I just turned on Fox Sports because I was trying to find, long story short, all right. So last weekend we had the Monaco F1 Grand Prix, right? And I nodded off because it was on Sunday. I worked my longest day of the week on Sunday, and it was a pretty busy day. So I got home and I nodded off literally 20 minutes before the race fucking started. Mm-hmm. And I woke up 10 minutes after it already started. I thought, and I looked at my watch and went, I've only missed 10 minutes. This will be fine. Then I have a look, and it's a red flag, and the shit around. I thought, oh, my God. So I thought, all right, the red flag, I'm just going to flick through the channels and see what else is on. And I just happened to flick up through Fox Sports, and I just sort of said NRL 360. I was flicking up, and then I just heard Buzz say, Benji Marshall. Went, what's he talking about? So I scrolled back to listen. And that's the only reason why I've heard all of that. I was just sort of going, this is absolute garbage.
Yeah.
And then I went along again. And I completely forgot what was said. I just tuned out. I didn't even listen to the end of it. I know Brent Reid was there, and he was, I think, when they started having a go at Shane Richardson, I knew Reedy would defend him because I'm pretty sure Brent Reid and Richardson are friends from a while back.
Mm-hmm.
So I went, he's just going to defend him. And they'll just argue. Yeah, I just didn't care. I fucking moved on.
Yeah.
And I was half asleep.
Let me tell you, you didn't miss anything in that race.
No, it was a great parade lap that lasted 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
But it wasn't until the day after I saw the article come up on my Twitter feed. I thought, I'll read what was written on there, and I went, I didn't miss anything. And so I commented on that, and I had people saying, well, don't fucking watch it then. I'm going, well, I hadn't for 3 years. I saw a snippet. What do you want me to do?
Look,
but it doesn't matter if people just stop watching it because they're still showing it there.
Yeah.
And as much as I can't believe that losing Paul Kent has made the show even worse. And I'm not advocating to bring him back because I'm glad he's not there. The problem is they replaced him with people who are dumber than him and who have less of a clue about what goes on the field of football. I expect better from a former player like Gordon Tallis as far as commenting on what goes on the field because he's been around and he's been through his fair share of media horseshit.
Well, do you remember when he was talking about the Players Association when they were trying to get a new collective bargaining agreement in place? And he was talking about like, he doesn't really know what the Players Association does. And they said to him, but you were a member of the Players Association who was one of the members that talked to the NRL while you're in it. And he was like, yeah, I didn't really know what was going on, to be honest. And it's like, If that's the level that you're getting, it's probably the wrong person to have on your panel.
Exactly
But
right.
I've said this before. Like I basically block all of the media organisations from my Twitter feed and any journalists. There's only a couple that I have on there. Craig Norenberg's is one, and the Mole. They're basically the only ones I haven't blocked. But I block all of those media outlets, and I tell you what, it changes your timeline for the better because you don't get the negativity come through. You just get what fans are talking about. And then I turn the games on literally at kickoff. It's very rare I'll watch the lead into a game, like the pre-show for anything, especially Channel 9 ones, the Origins and the Grand Final. I literally turn it on when the game's kicking off, and it's better for it because you just get the game experience. And, you know, when you love rugby league and you enjoy it, when you just get the rugby league, it's good. It's all enjoyment. And when you remove all of the garbage, it's just better for your viewing experience. So that's what I recommend people do.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Can we talk about the $600 million deal that the Australian government has done with the NRL to expand into Papua New Guinea?
Is it to expand into Papua New Guinea or is it to fight China?
It's both. It's both. Okay. We're fighting.
The Australian government found out that the NRL has bombs.
Pretty much.
Sure, they come off the boot of Matt Burton, but still, they're bombs, and we're gonna go and attack China with these bombs, and we're gonna start by launching them from Papua New Guinea.
$600 million over 10 years, so it's only $60 million a year. Now, keep in mind that NRL clubs get a $15 million grant every single year from the NRL itself, and the salary cap is $10 million. So they basically get $5 million extra dollars on top of their biggest expense. So NRL clubs are pretty well covered financially. This team is going to have $60 million every year for 10 years, and plus they'll get the NRL grant as well. So they're going to be quite well funded. Some of that money is obviously going to go into, you know, facilities and things like that. And some of it will be pilfered off to, you know, developing rugby league in Papua New Guinea.
I think it's developed.
Yeah. So
they save some coin there. I'm wondering if the NRL is going to, now they've got the coin up there and they know it's there, if they're going to force the PNG side to pay for everyone's travel.
Imagine if they did. That'd be pretty funny. I tell you what, apparently $50 million of it is going to be split amongst the other NRL clubs because the $50 million will be what the license fee is, basically, or the expansion fee for that club.
So there'll be, why couldn't they make it $51 million? Because then it'd be $3 million each club.
Well, it's kind of outrageous that they set it that high. And we talked last episode about how the Australian government could have bought any single club in the entire NRL for a lot less and just moved them to PNG for a lot less money. But, you know, it's government. But, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I'd love that PNG is going to get its own team. Like, don't get me wrong there. It's going to be awesome to watch them. You and me have said our favourite teams to watch in international rugby league these days is PNG. Just because of how they play. It's going to be cool to see a different style of game coming to the NRL. They've got a player base there already. They're going to be pretty damn good, I think. And they're going to really bash up some teams in the NRL. It's going to be awesome to see. But, I mean, $600 million of taxpayers' money is pretty fucking outrageous for a footy team. And I know what it's there for, but holy hell.
Bit of anti-China sentiment over there in the NRL.
Should we
take games to China?
What's that?
Should we actually have PNG play games in China now?
Imagine if
just to take the moz off it a little bit.
Imagine if remember the Millie Seagulls always threaten to play a game overseas, a trial game, and they never ever do, ever.
Yes.
And one of them was there, wanted to play a game in China. Imagine if they played and they sorted it out finally, and the game they took there was against PNG. That would be kind of hilarious.
They're going to take the Roosters over there.
What's that?
They might have a few people that might be, a little bit loose with their language over there.
Oh, jeez. They've changed Tedesco out of it.
I wasn't talking about him.
Oh, okay. It was one of the other ones.
I was talking about something that was far more recent, but that happened over in LA.
Yeah, look. It's the Roosters are a wonderful club. Just ask them.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything terrible that happens at the Roosters, shame on you for bringing it up.
Well, that's true. No, they can go over there for charity.
You do not want to get caught with charity over in You do not.
Well, yeah, that is a big deal. I wonder now they've got that short up whether the NRL will be hasty to move towards their next expansion, given that they've basically got a golden deal and they've moved to 18 teams. Whether they'll just go, it's an even number. We could just sit on this for a bit. Because to be honest, the only concern is if you go to 19 or 20 teams, like 2 or 3 years from now, it is going to, maybe in the short term anyway, create a bit of a drain on the player pool a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the only concern you get out of that. I mean, we can go back to 1995 and look what happened when 4 teams come in.
Yeah.
The comp was not set up for that massive expansion that quick.
And then 2 years we had 22 teams because there was the, 12 in the NRL and 10 for the Super League comp. So, there was a lot of expansion very quickly. I think what you could do, though, because I've been thinking about this, because the PNG team, there's going to be a real solid core of the PNG test players that you're going to build around.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to be a solid team. They're not going to set the world on fire straight away, but they'll be solid.
They will become everyone's second favourite team.
100%. And I hope they just call them the Hunters, like the Queensland Cup team. I hope they just bring that infrastructure straight up. That'd be cool. Although it would be, I was thinking about names you could call them, the President's Men and stuff like that. But anyway. But right now in New Zealand, we're not hearing about this in Australia. Right now in New Zealand, there's a big blow up between a lot of different factions in rugby union. And I think if the NRL said, we're bringing in this PNG team and then we're bringing in 2 New Zealand clubs, and our goal is to open up the books to any of the rugby union players that are disgruntled that want to try their hand in the NRL, I think you would fill those 2 teams up with some of those players pretty quickly. So I think that could offset your player pool issues, and it would absolutely horrify the rugby union authorities over there. That's the last thing they want to see. So you could do that. I tend to think that the next one is going to be Perth and New Zealand after the PNG teams, and that makes a lot more sense. But I don't know, if everyone was pulling their weight by producing players, I don't think it'd be a problem. But not everyone's pulling their weight with player production.
You will find, though, when you start getting more clubs, that they will inadvertently start doing that, because having extra competition to sign a player is going to put a lot more pressure on teams who are definitely the ones who have junior nurseries. It'll put more pressure on them to just go, fuck it, we're not going into bidding wars. Let's just nurture our own talent and bring them through.
Yeah.
Because it's just cheaper for us.
Yeah. I also think with New Zealand, if you get a second team set up there, I think that it's one of those situations where you're going to get the juniors that the Warriors just can't capture, because there's only so many juniors they can have on their books.
Where would you put the second team, though? Would it be North Island still, or would it go to the South Island?
I've always leaned towards Christchurch for 2 reasons. They've got the history there. They're looking to build a new stadium there. It might be an indoor stadium. If it was, it would be brilliant. And I just think that would be a good stepping stone, and then the next one would be Wellington after that.
I'm not opposed to that.
But I've always said, like, that New Zealand team is it's New Zealand's second team, and, you know, New Zealanders, it's up to where they think is better to hold that team. Although I have to say, like a lot of people say Wellington, I think it's imperative that if you do add a second New Zealand team, it's playing in a rectangular stadium.
Look, I'd say, to be honest, the two most prominent Northern Ireland rugby league areas in New Zealand would be Auckland and Hamilton.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever been as massive in Wellington. Not that it's been poor or anything like that, but I think maybe because Hamilton's not by much, a bit closer to Auckland, so it's just a bit natural, I guess, that was the case. But yeah, I'd say that was more of the case. Christchurch, though, I think would be a better idea, because then you can start building up, you know, North Island versus South Island type stuff.
Yeah, and I just think
pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think it's, if you've got the right stadium, which I think is always imperative when you're going to do an expansion like this, if you've got the right stadium in place, you know, the time is right for rugby league to really go after New Zealand. We've talked about the history of rugby league in Christchurch on this podcast, and it's a pretty rich history. But that's what I would do. I think that ticks a lot of boxes for me anyway.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be there for that. And then we bring in the team in Perth. So my question would be, is Christchurch or Perth the one that gets the Bears?
Are the Bears still alive?
Oh, you know they'll want one of them.
They'll try. I don't think it's going to happen, hey? I don't think it's going to happen. I think that it's all just media talk to get...
Well, PVL was on board with them.
Yeah, I think he'll ditch them immediately. I think as long as Perth doesn't come up with a stupid name like Pirates, like that was a bad name. If they went back to being the Perth Reds, I wouldn't have any problems with it. But I still like the idea of the Perth Quackers.
We have to push it. The Mad Quackers, really
unique. And Christchurch, I don't know what they call themselves, eh?
Well, they could be Quackers as well. We can have a Quacker off whenever they play.
A Quacker off.
Wouldn't that be good?
I don't know
bring out your Quackers.
What is something in Christchurch that is like I don't know if they're famous for them. Like, because you can't call
cookies.
It Kiwi, right?
Cookies.
Why is cookies?
I'm pretty sure Christchurch built the world's largest ever cookie. There's
Really?
a place over there called Cookie Time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, made a massive cookie there.
Okay.
Maybe they could be the cookies. Christchurch cookies.
Yeah. What happens when
that way they've automatically got a sponsor lined up as well.
What happens when they play Canberra and Canberra Milk?
Wow. The cookie wins, doesn't it?
Would they have to merge with the Chocolate Soldiers of Penrith?
No, they've already moved on from there.
Okay.
Just a few of them, you know. You just need a few of those chocolate chips in there.
I don't know why, but I want to just bring up Jeremy Sloss's shoe. I don't even know why.
Yeah. I hear Schloss, and just whenever I hear that word, I just also think of the word schlop. just seems like I was going to say good fit, but, you know, I don't want to talk about fitting into his shoe and schlop. It's just a mess.
Yeah,
it's a mess.
It's a mess. One of the great preseason moments in rugby league history.
Yes.
Speaking
of shit.
Yes.
No, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a segue. What do you got?
Well, this week we saw Taylor May had his first appearance in court.
It was a good segue after all.
On domestic violence charges that he's facing. He pleaded not guilty, and he's the next court date is next year, like basically the middle of next year. So he might not be playing until then. Now, the Panthers have applied for a salary cap dispensation and they've received that.
That's fair.
But yeah, and that's happened before. I believe the Dragons got that in the past.
That's correct, yeah. And it's also fair that he stood down, no fault stand down clause, whatever that is. Absolutely, he should be stood down until that's all sorted out. I'm fine with that as well.
I don't know that I am, hey?
No, I am. You can't have. I know it's a rough thing because it does come across as though he's being labelled as guilty by the NRL over this thing, even though they call it no guilt, stand down clause, whatever it is. It's just words. It comes across as though there is guilt, but the NRL can't know that because they're not the ones doing the investigation. This is a criminal thing.
Yeah, and you always have to leave it up to the court every single time.
Exactly right. But I think it is the right thing when you look at it on a commercial sense, because it's not so much about, well, if he's innocent, then it works out all right. It's more of the worst case scenario is, well, what if we've let him keep playing and it's turned out that he's done these horrible fucking things? Yeah, and people come out and say, well, you've let this fucking bastard do this and do that and blah, 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 blah. And it's just easier to avoid all of that drama. And as much as it's not entirely fair on the club or the player, at the same time, the whole idea of this whole process is now that the players know about it and the NRL's not going to shy away from this, even if you're a test player like Jack de Belin was, we're going to enforce this. So if you don't want to be in this situation, the ball's in your court, players. Just behave yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes circumstance can be a bit of a bitch on those sort of things, but at the same time, you are in control of your own destiny and they're the rules. And I think that the only way to have a rule like this is you have to be black and white with it, and you have to be steadfast on it. You can't waver anyway.
And look, and we've talked about this before, and there's no right answers. It's
not no. There is. That's very much a point that needs to be made. There are no right answers, and there's no way of dealing with this correctly.
Yeah, and I think our listeners are pretty good about it because we haven't ever got negative feedback when we've talked about any of these subjects, and I think it's because of the way we approach it, and neither of us sit here and go this is how it should be, which you see a lot of.
What we could do is just, as soon as you've found guilty of a crime, we just take you out the back and put a bullet in your head. There's more players, man. There's more players. Don't worry about it.
The thing that concerns me with this stand down policy is, I think the idea of it was that you would be stood down for a few months while it went to court until it got to court. I don't think it was ever properly intended for it to be you stood down for an entire year, because that's a bloody long time. Even in a long footy career, losing an entire year is a long time.
I don't know, because it was brought in, you'd be stood down for instances where the potential guilty plea could lead to jail time of a set period of time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was 7+ years from memory.
That's right. So it's for genuinely serious cases, and you'd have to think the NRL's aware that those types of cases, especially with a high-profile athlete, even if it's someone like Taylor May, who may not be seen as a all-out superstar, who's playing test football and all sorts of great stuff, and one of the fucking greats of all time, that sort of gear, he still has a national profile because he plays in the NRL. Anyone does.
Yeah.
So because of that, it is going to take a while for them to find a jury who's not going to be swayed by what's in the recent media, and that's the problem they have to work around with that. And so I'm fairly certain the NRL will be aware that there would be a delay in a lot of this stuff.
But what I mean is, initially, I don't think that it was they had this rule with the intent that it was going to be that players were going to miss an entire year. See, the thing that worries me is this: let's pretend we're talking about a random player, right? what if you hadn't done anything? Like, and we've seen that before. We've seen it happen before. And I bring this up, and I hate bringing it up again and again because I don't like saying his name. So you don't like dragging players' names out for horrible times in their lives. But Sean Kenny Dow, like, the judge was scathing in that case, and it wasn't towards him. He was found not guilty of charges.
Mm-hmm.
He hadn't done anything wrong.
Yes.
If you had someone like that, if you've got a player that has literally done nothing wrong at all, and they miss a whole year of their careers, and that they weren't guilty whatsoever, like, something about that just doesn't sit right with me.
I know.
If it's to save face for rugby league, like,
well, no,
I can see that argument.
It's not to save face for rugby league. It's to save face for businesses, the club and the game itself.
Yeah,
they're looking at it as more of a business thing.
I get that, but if somebody has, because it's basically a year ban for not doing. Look, I'm the first to say, found guilty, sacked, go away, don't want to see you again, right? But for those people that didn't do anything wrong and that have been falsely accused, I just think it could be a really fucking horrible situation for those people. And that concerns me. There's a reason why our judicial system is innocent until proven guilty. And to see that reversed a little bit in this case in terms of your NRL ban, I don't know how I feel about that, especially when you then say you do get convicted and found guilty. Like, then you get a small ban and you're back playing rugby league again, having been found guilty.
Well, no, with the stand-down one, though, if you're found guilty, you're going to jail.
Well, the only one that's really gone to jail is Jared Hayne.
Yeah.
Has anyone else gone to jail that you can think of?
No, but this is the thing, though, is you've got to think about the worst-case scenario because that's what they're going to get judged on by the media.
Mm-hmm.
And by sponsors, is you let Jared Hayne play right up until he was found guilty of crimes, horrible crimes.
Mm-hmm.
We can't give you our money. We can't support that because people are just going to attach that criminal behaviour with our brand on your sport. And that's how they're looking at it. So they're not thinking about the situations where the player might be innocent. They're thinking about how much money could we potentially lose if this person is found guilty.
And I know
it doesn't seem right, but that's where they're coming from. It's not coming from the player's welfare perspective.
And that's
from the business perspective.
And that's the thing. That's why I find it hard to weigh up because you're right about Jared Hayne. If he'd have been allowed to keep playing, it would have been terrible. It really would have been.
So the problem is, though, is as you said before, there's no right answer here.
Yeah.
There's no way that you can put forward a solution or some sort of rule or anything like that to deal with this. It's a horrible thing. The only possible thing you can do to resolve issues like this is to have the matter immediately taken to court and immediately sorted out within the month that it happens.
That would be ideal.
That they're charged.
Yeah, and look, they just can't do that because they're on the courts.
God, no.
There's
a fucking backlog of everything there.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Maybe, given that the NRL's now got some friends in the government, they could just say, any chance we could have our own, get a retired judge to just be our judge on criminal matters to oversee these things. We can get some retired people to do the investigations so that we're not taking resources off the government or off the court systems and stuff like that.
I'm pretty sure that's what the integrity unit does, hey?
Kind of, yeah. But it's more on it's kind of in-house business stuff.
Yeah,
as far as salary cap and stuff like that. But this would be more on the criminal side of things. So the NRL's not involved in this. They're just getting these people to come in and not to hand down a verdict, but to just have a look at the initial what they've got there, initial facts, not pass a judgment, but say to the NRL, we think you should stand this player down, or, this player might be okay.
See, if like I think the integrity unit does a lot of that anyway. But if I was a players' association, I would go crazy. I would go absolutely nuts over it.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, though.
There's no right answer for it. That's the problem.
No, you can't fix it.
Yeah, and I guess my concern over the whole thing is, and I see all sides of it, I really do, because there is no answer to it. But there's a concern for me that what happens when it gets to a dude that has literally done nothing wrong, and they lose an entire year of their career, and they're found not guilty whatsoever by the court, and then the NRL sort of pats them on the back and says, "Oh, sorry about that, get on with it." And I don't know that that's, for me, I feel like that's not good enough, but I don't know a better way to do it.
No.
It's just one of those situations that is like, man.
I'd probably argue too that I reckon the player is more concerned about the reputational damage it does, because a lot of these guys are retiring at the age of 35, 36.
Yeah.
They've got to find a job for 30 years after that. Like, the one player I always think about that really, really gets me the most over these sort of things is Brett Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely loved by fans everywhere when he was playing the footy, because he was just so good.
Yeah.
And then that horrible case came against him.
Mm-hmm.
Paint him out to be this completely different person to what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask most people now who Brett Stewart was.
Mm.
And a lot of them are going to say, wasn't he that rapist guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the bit that gets me.
Yeah.
And he's got to try and get a job with that sort of shit hanging around there. Imagine you're an employee and you never watch the NRL.
Yeah.
You go, I'll just hop on Google, see if there's anything on here about this bloke, and going, maybe we won't hire him. Even though he's found not guilty.
Yeah.
Not good to be hiring a bloke who's hung over his head in the past. We might just pass on him. And it's not right that they do that, but that does take place.
But that can happen to anyone.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's my point, is it's the reputational damage that's done, even on the people who are found not guilty.
Yeah.
So I think that one hurts them more. And they don't realise it at the time, because at the time they're just living the moment in, I'm just playing football.
Yeah.
But they don't realise that one until they've retired and they've got to go and join the workforce or find other work, or maybe they're trying to set up a business and that shit's over their head. And even though they're completely innocent, most of the articles you find about them are about this horrible freaking case.
Yeah.
That they had nothing to do. And it's just, you can't fix that.
Yeah. I just wish there was some, I don't know, like, better way to handle these. And there's just not. Like, I can't even begin to think of what would be a better way to do it. But the one anomaly I do see is that, like, you can be banned for a year for something potentially you're not guilty of doing, but then if you get found guilty of doing it, you'll get an extra smaller ban, and then you'll be back and you will actually be out there on a footy field. It's not like your career is over at that point, and we've seen it dozens of times. Like, you can have been in jail and come back and play in the NRL. We've seen it.
Yeah, Russell Packer.
Yeah, so that's an anomalous part of this whole process too. But as I said, I don't know the right answer to it. I just think that I worry that we're going to get somebody that has been completely, absolutely 100% innocent of anything, and I worry about the impact that it's going to have on that person. And I don't know. I just wish there was a better way to do it. That's all. I guess that's all I'm saying. I don't have the answer to it. I really don't. I wish I
maybe we could set up a team in Gosford and call them the Bears, and they can play for them.
We could.
There you go. Problem solved. You're welcome. And look, my other takeaway out of this is Taylor May did act a little bit like just a fucking grubby dickhead when he came out of that court appearance. It's not hard to just, say no comment.
He did say no comment, though.
I know, but there was just a whole fucking air about the way he carried on and stuff like that. I was just looking at him going, man, you're not really making that much of an effort.
I thought when he came out of the court, I didn't know what the hand sign thing was. I thought he was just sort of framing himself up in front of all of the media who were there waiting for him.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm talking about. Like, there's no need for that, man. Who the hell goes to court looking like that? I'm being fucking picky now, picking on his clothes. But yeah, it's just, it looked like he wasn't taking it as seriously as he should have, given the severity of the charges.
Yeah.
He's just a little bit flippant.
He just how old is he? What is he, 22?
I don't know.
I think, he's only a young dude. And I'm sure his lawyer would have said, don't say anything. And he should have said, don't do anything. Just walk out, head down. And for the most part, he did that. And, you just know what the media's like. I mean, they're asking him all sorts of stupid questions.
They all know what the media's like.
Yeah.
And you don't go around drawing attention to yourself by doing the slightest thing that could be taken the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because that's what they'll latch on to.
Yeah.
Especially when you've got a criminal case coming up, because they've got to find a jury who are going to be unbiased. Don't give them a reason to have bias. Because it is going to be on the news. It's going to be in the fucking websites and stuff like that. It's going to be hard to look away from that and try and find a jury that's not going to see that sort of garbage. And that's why it's going to take so long to find a jury.
I wonder if it even goes to a jury. I wonder if it's just held in front of a magistrate.
It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Oh, yeah.
If they've got actual legit criminal charges and they think they've got enough evidence to put him in jail, and they'll be going to a jury.
But the one thing that is just rock solid, no questions about, like, if anybody's found guilty of that sort of thing, just get rid of them. We don't need them in the game.
No, God, no.
I don't like seeing, like, the redemption stories and all that shit, and like, he's paid the time and he's making a comeback, and it's
what's Dean Ritchie going to write about?
Hey,
what's Dean Ritchie going to write about? Oh man,
it's horrible that there are those situations, and like, it's the last thing you want to talk about on a footy podcast. But I said I would. Like, I was tweeting about it during the week, and I said the same thing. I don't have the answers to it, but I said that, and there was a bunch of different reactions to it. And I said, look, I'm going to talk about this on the podcast so that it could be elaborated on. And once again, after all of that I've said, still don't have any answers. Don't have anything new for you.
You can't, because you need a result in order to know how to punish someone.
Yeah.
You can't punish someone, before you know what the crime is and if they're guilty of it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you've got to protect yourself commercially, because all businesses do. So it's just a tricky circumstance to be in. So I do understand what the NRL's doing and why they're doing it the way they are, and I kind of agree with it.
Yeah.
You want to try and have a clean image.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of the reason behind it. I mean, up until this whole Taylor May matter,
yeah,
the actual journos in rugby league were looking worse than the actual players. So
yeah, they were.
That's why I'm pissed at him.
Took attention away from them. Well, one of them assaulted a tree.
I'm joking, man. If he's found guilty of that, that's yeah.
Well, you just get them out of the game. Like,
he's got no place in the game. You can't have that
really straightforward. Yeah,
behavior going
on. But yeah, it's one of those complicated ones that's one of those times where I'm like, I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions, because I don't know what you'd get to. And yeah, I think that, you're right. The NRL falls back on like their commercial position, and that's understandable.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, they don't want to get fucking. I don't know if they would, but they don't want to get themselves in a situation where they might get sued for something like whatever, having someone in there, or God knows, they'll have fucking court cases on anything these days.
Yeah,
it's all about risk management and risk reduction, sort of stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a weird one. Is it better than the system we had before?
It is. Yeah, it is.
I think that's what we've got to. Can it be improved? Yes, it can be.
Probably could be.
But we've moved at least in the right direction. And I think that's the main thing, is they've shown an absolute zero tolerance stance on this sort of stuff. And that's the right thing to have, is zero tolerance on this sort of stuff. And I'd say it's had a pretty big impact in the last few seasons. I don't think we've had as much player misbehaviour as we had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's had a pretty immediate impact. And that's kind of what you want out of these things.
Yeah. And I guess it comes down to like within the playing groups around the NRL, I guess you'd have to just change the mindset on it in terms of like, you're going to get a ban if something comes up, but your mindset would just have to be changed from like, I'm getting punished for this to like, I don't know, something else. I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Look, I think the best thing Taylor May could probably do, and any other player who finds themselves in this situation, is just go do some community service anyway. Yeah, it's not like he's struggling financially. And I dare say the players still keep getting paid even though they're stood down.
Well, he's got a new contract that'll kick in at the Panthers from next year. So he'd be on like not a massive contract now, but next year will be on a sizable one. So that's interesting. And yeah, like I guess the other thing for him is that like he missed all of last season with the terrible knee injury, and he's only just started the season this year, and straight away his basically whole year is over. So it'll be interesting to see how that impacts him. Being a younger dude, it'll be easier if he does get to come back to get back into the swing of things. But basically, he's going to have missed the vast majority of 2 straight years as it stands.
Yeah.
And that's significant at any age. So we'll see what happens with all of that, I guess.
Indeed, we shall. So what else have we had going on?
Not a great deal of other things that I can think of. Hey, like it's, the big story was the PNG story, and we've got Origin coming up next week, so that'll be fun. Are we going to do a post-Origin show?
Yes, we can do that.
Yeah, that'd be good fun.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
St Helens the top of the table in England. Guess who's second?
Wigan?
Yep.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Guess who's choking in third?
Warrington?
Yeah.
Who's fourth?
Hull KR.
Oh, Hull KR. Yeah, they're having a good year.
And David Nofaluma got the sack, and Salford are 8th.
Oh, they're a little lower than I thought they'd be. Whereabouts Hull FC at the moment?
They've lost their last 2 games, so they've dropped a little bit. Hull FC, second last. They've had just the one win. But
they signed John Cartwright as coach for next year recently. So
that'll help. They've had just the one win this year against the only team lower than them on the ladder, and that was London.
Yeah, they're terrible.
They are.
Hull FC needs a new owner. That's what it comes down to.
Should Marwan Kukash jump on board?
As long as he doesn't sign a bunch of over-the-hill players and listen to any former coaches on who he should sign, he'd be fine. He'd be a fine owner.
How about they get Lee Hatstand?
No. No, definitely not.
Come on. He knows a winger who's on the market.
Imagine if that's what Potato ended up doing. He ended up running one of these Super League clubs.
His first signing was Nofaluma.
That'd be pretty funny.
That would be. Oh, man. So, yeah, that's the that's all the Super League rap that you need to hear.
Yeah, pretty much, isn't it?
What else was there? Let's see. Championship, Wakefield is still undefeated. 9 wins from 9 games. And in League One, Newcastle still haven't won a game. How are they going? Are they still West Wales Raiders like? Oh, yeah.
Are they really?
Yeah. Not as bad. So in the 1895 Cup, which is the comp at the start of the year, they had those 2 insane big losses there. They lost to York 114-10 and then Wakefield 110-0.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't been that bad, but they lost to Midland 70-16 in round 2. They lost to Keighley 82-6 in round 6.
Wow.
Round 8, they lost 74-0 to Oldham. They've had a few 60s and 50s and 40s put on them.
We could 100% play for that team.
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised you haven't had a call-up yet. They've conceded 538 points in 9 games, which is an average of 59.78 points per game.
That's terrible.
That's some bad numbers right there.
It's funny when you think about, like, they're the lower grades for them, and when you line up their lower grades versus what our lower grades do and how they perform and how they're used to develop players, like, it is night and day compared to which system works well and which doesn't. And they don't understand that. They just don't see that it should be done the way we're doing it, which works. It's kind of interesting. They'll never change it. They don't want to change it. They just want to slip off into the sunset.
Well, you don't break what's broken and fixed.
Exactly.
That one. See? If it ain't fixed, you break it.
I saw some people talking about there was a thing about teams that in the championship level, and there was the expression of interest was open, and they were saying what would happen if, say, Wigan entered a team in the championship as well as Super League, which is what it should be. That's how it all should work.
So treat championship like reserve grade.
Yeah.
Right.
It's how it should be, but they won't do it.
I thought some of these clubs kind of had those sort of alliances, kind of like what NRL clubs have with New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup sides.
Yeah, some of them have that dual registration sort of thing going on, but I don't think it's as integrated anywhere near as much as we've got it. It's kind of it's just more swapping players back and forth sort of thing.
Yeah.
This guy's not getting a run here this week, so you take him, rather than it being like a whole of club approach which is the way basically every NRL club does it.
Yeah. As common sense would dictate.
Yeah. You think so. It's funny that you'd think that you would look at the system that worked and copy it, or even try and improve on it, instead of saying, nah.
Nah. It's fine. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh, well, at that rate, I guess we should wrap this baby up.
Yeah, it's been a good app.
Put a bow on it.
Yep.
Alrighty, well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure you check us out on all of the socials. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Get in there, follow us, like us, subscribe to everything, share it all around, spam it to everybody. That'd be fantastic. Send it in emails.
Yeah, send them to LeagueFreak at LeagueFreak.com.
Yeah, why not? Do that. And if you're from the CCP and you don't like any of the comments tonight, use that same email address as well.
No. Our people from the north, our overlords, I welcome them, and
we welcome the Shanghai Bears.
Yeah, imagine that. I actually saw somebody. Oh, it was you know that dude that does the Fox Sports. He takes piss out of Fox Sports and he put out articles. Well, not articles.
Oh yeah, is that Fox West?
That's it, Fox.
That's
West.
the one. That's good.
He was like, he did an article saying the Chinese government offers $601 million for a volleyball team in PNG, and I just thought that was hilarious. That was so fun. Just that one extra $1 million.
That's what you need. Just that little bit more.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to check us all out, and we will catch us all on the next episode.